Hello? Yeah, so this is the 5th of May 2024. It's the National Free Speech Rally. I think it's put on by One Nation. I think, well, Craig Kelly seems to be behind it. And there's quite a good number of people here. Some familiar faces, haven't seen for a while, because there hasn't been much on for this side of the protest movement. Yeah, so it's about 10 minutes to go, and there's probably 100 plus here at this stage, and quite a few more walking down. There's Pauline looking on. All right, let's see how it goes.
Welcome everybody. And thank you for turning out in such great numbers here on such a wet day. Our first thank you also goes to the Bureau of Mineralogy. They promised that this time there was an 85% chance of rain. And I knew when I saw that it's not going to rain, we'll be right. Also a few words out to our friends, our Greek Orthodox friends that have Greek Easter today.
Yeah, happy Easter!
Happy Easter to them.
Yasu.
And we appreciate the importance of Greek Easter as a family tradition, and that many of the people celebrating Greek and Orthodox Easter couldn't be here today, but they are here with us in spirit.
Absolutely.
And we also meet here in a very famous part of Australia. This area, known as Speaker's Corner, has been the traditional home of free speech in this country since the 1870s. It is based upon the famous Speaker's Corner in London, in Hyde Park, where speakers such as Sir Winston Churchill and George Orwell have stood and spoke for freedom. That is how we meet today here in this traditional place that recognises the importance of freedom of speech in a democratic society. And we are here today for two specific reasons, although there are many others that we could speak against. Firstly, the digital ID bill. One of the most Orwellian pieces of legislation ever to come into the federal parliament. Those may remember the fight against the Australia card back in the late 1980s. The digital ID bill is the Australia card on steroids. What it will do, the digital ID bill combined with a central bank digital currency will give total control to the government to control our lives. We must ensure that cash always remains king in this country. And any bank, such as Macquarie Bank, have in the last couple of days that have announced they no longer want to handle cash, well, I say the answer is simple. They should lose their banking licence. If these large corporations want to have a banking licence in Australia, a fundamental rule must be they must deal and always handle and accept cash. Otherwise, hand that banking licence in and give it to somebody else. Of course, the second issue we're here today for is to protect freedom of speech. Because without freedom of speech, we have no more democracy. And we have seen freedom of speech under attack in my country like I thought I would never see it in my life. I've said long and strongly, the eSafety Commissioner in this country should be sacked. Here we have someone completely and utterly out of control. So out of control, she not only wants to censor the internet in Australia, but she has such grand visions, she wants to censor the internet around the entire world. She's embarrassed our nation. She's made us an international laughing stock. She should pack her bags and go home. Now also, last week, we had a shocking abuse of freedom of speech in this country, with Senator Pauline Hanson being dragged before the courts. Simply an abuse of our courts under that draconian 18C legislation, which the Liberal government under Tony Abbott promised that they would repeal. But like a lot of things that the Liberal Party do, when push comes to shove, they go to water. Now what Senator Hanson was in court for was that on the morning that the Queen died, that the Queen passed away, when many Australians were in great mourning, many Australians had grown up and went to school singing God Save Our Gracious Queen every morning. The Queen symbolised stability and security and continuity for our nation. So when the Queen passed away, millions of Australians were in deep mourning. And what did the Greens Senator Maureen Fakuri tweet out? And I'll read it word for word so there's no mistake. She said, "I cannot mourn the leader of a racist empire built on stolen lives, land and wealth of colonised people. We are reminded of the urgency of the treaty with the First Nations, justice and reparations for British colonies and becoming a republic." Now firstly, that comments are distressing, that cause great distress and upset around Australia. So I'll tell you what, I'd say she should have that free speech. Even though I disagree with every single word that she said, and even though her words cause great distress to many of my elderly relatives, I say she's allowed to say that. In a free country, that's what she's allowed to say. We defend her right. But likewise, we defend our right to criticise her.
Absolutely.
And Senator Pauline Hanson replied, quote, "Your attitude appalls and disgusts me. When you immigrated to Australia, you took every advantage of this country. You took citizenship, bought multiple homes, took a job in Parliament. It's clear you're not happy, so pack your bags and piss off back to Pakistan." Now, is that aggressive debate? Absolutely. But between two federal senators, that's what we want. We want free speech for the contest of ideas. We can't be putting the brakes on free speech in this country, otherwise we go backwards. Because we know that we cannot trust government with free speech. The idea that a government can set up some type of Orwellian mis- and disinformation association or a ministry of truth should appall and offend every one of us. Only look at what happened overnight in the USA. We've had the reports from there, from the US House of Representatives, that the Biden administration was actually pressuring Twitter and Facebook to censor the news that the virus had leaked from a lab. Censored it. A government conspiring with the tech giants to censor the truth to the world. And these are the people that want to control the Ministry of Truth. Not on my watch, not on our watch. We're going to stand and we're going to fight against this. Now, I've got some great speakers today. The first speaker I'd like to call up is a good friend of mine from the Libertarian Party here in New South Wales, successfully elected to the upper house, doing great work in that upper house. John Ruddick. John, please. One of the great tragedies and things that's going wrong in this country is that as an Australian citizen, I am being prohibited and denied the right to explore some of our national parks and our beaches because of my race. That is an apartheid regime.
Absolutely.
There's a beautiful part of this world called Mount Warning, up in the northern New South Wales, just south of the Queensland border. It is a magnificent piece of national park that belongs to us all. But because of my race, the New South Wales Liberal government, and remember this happened under a Liberal government, has denied me and every other Australian, because of our race, access to that summit trail. I congratulate John Ruddick on his work on that, in getting a debate up before the state parliament to try and protest against that and voice our opinions. We are one country, we are one nation, and we all should have the right to traverse across our national parks, our beaches, and our waterways. Please give a warm welcome, Upper House Member, the Honourable John Ruddick.
My name is John Ruddick, and I am a conspiracy theorist. Now, I would more accurately call myself a neo-conspiracy theorist, because I'm new to this. And I've got a confession. I must be the last person left on earth who still believes that Lee Harvey Oswald shot President Kennedy alone. I believe it. Most of you may not. I believe NASA did land on the moon. I believe Princess Diana died in a car accident, a drink driving accident. And I believe Osama did 9/11. But in the last 20 years, I may not sound like a very good conspiracy theorist so far, but in the last 20 years, something has happened, and they're lying to us all the time. I believe there is a conspiracy about global boiling. Okay, it's not getting hotter. They've told us for 30 years the oceans are going to rise. It's going to get hotter. I believe there is a conspiracy about that. I believe there's a conspiracy about putting us into one war after another. In all these other places that most Aussies haven't heard of, I believe there is a conspiracy about that. I believe there was a lot of conspiracies about a little thing called COVID and the vaccine. There was a million conspiracies there, and they still try to sweep it under the carpet. A lot of people here were involved in the COVID fight, but that's just the beginning. But look, I also believe Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. But the conspiracy that we're here for today, I believe that there is a conspiracy. They're lying to us again, because they're saying, we're going to bring in your digital ID, and it's not going to be compulsory, right? That's right. It's going to be just as voluntary as the vaccine was. Okay. In fact, they're going to say, well, you don't have to have internet banking today. There are a few sort of 90-year-olds who still use the old bank card. Okay. So they're going to say, well, you don't have to. And you know what? The stupid Liberal Party once again. Look, Labor's brought this in. It originated under the Liberal Party. I think Alexandra Marshall's going to say a few words. She knows the origins of this legislation. I think it was once again the Liberal Party, like the eSafety Commission, brought in by the Liberal Party. But look, so this is what they're going to do. Now, it is going to, at first, seem wonderfully convenient to have this digital ID. You don't have to shuffle around all your different 100 points of ID. It's going to seem great for most people. And the truth is that they have set up a turnkey operation so they can have a Beijing-style social credit system at the drop of a hat. And they are telling us, yeah, we could do that, but trust us, we won't. And they may even be being sincere. Probably not. But even if they really believe that, what will happen is maybe for 10 years, maybe for 20 years, it'll all be fine. We won't even think about it, that we've got this digital ID. And then there'll be a crisis, an unprecedented crisis. The war on terror. COVID mania. There'll be another crisis, and then they'll say to us when... Okay. And climate change, of course. There might be 3 unusually hot summers in a row because of natural variation. And then they'll say, oh my God, look, this is an unprecedented crisis in the history of the world. We need these emergency temporary powers to bring in a social credit system. That's what will happen. And so I say, look, let's not have it in the first place. Now, very sadly, this is going to be the law of the land. It's got through the Senate. It's going to get through the House of Representatives. Now, what we need to do is elect freedom supporting parties at the next federal election. It's the only way to do it. And we've got to try and get the balance of power. We've got to try, that's the only way we can do it. Okay, so just keep waking up your friends. Keep waking up your friends. Last thing, I'll just say, Craig was right about the Australia card in the 1980s. Bob Hawke is generally considered, as far as Labor Prime Ministers go, Bob Hawke's probably the best. But he tried to bring in this the Australia card ID. Okay, and it was a big deal. And guess who was campaigning against it? Who led the campaign against it? The Liberal Party. Okay, John Howard and Andrew Peacock, they were both against it. Good. There's something gone wrong in the Liberal Party. Okay, we expect things like this from the Labor Party. But here's the Liberal Party once again doing it. So all I can say, ladies and gentlemen, maintain the rage. Okay, we have to reverse this because they will turn it on us. They will turn it on us. Maintain the rage.
Thanks, John. We've got a special guest from overseas in the crowd who'll be speaking later today. Billboard Chris, can we give him all a great Australian welcome? Our next speaker is a dentist from Sydney that stood and fought at the last election for the United Australia Party. Natalie Dumer.
How to follow two politicians by somebody who's not a politician. Now, somebody told me 4 years ago that I'd be standing here fighting for the freedom of the Australian people. I would not believe him. There is no way in the world. So a little bit about my history. I came from the former Soviet Union, from USSR. A socialist government. I was born there, but it was bordering on totalitarian regime. My incredibly strong-willed, now vaccine-injured mother, but oh my God, I can't say that because that's malinformation. My mother brought us to this country. She brought us to this country for freedoms, for the freedoms that it offered. She brought us to the country of Australia for bravery, not a land of digital ID, not a land of e-commissioner, deciding what is true and what is not, what we can say, what we cannot, and what we can hear and what we cannot. This is not acceptable. She brought my family to a country where you had freedom to travel, not get locked down. She brought my family for freedoms to have an opinion and not get shadow banned or deplatformed on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Back in the USSR, my mother knew that mainstream media, which was really the only media, was propaganda. The propaganda was very rife about the West. And the only reason she knew that is because we had relatives in Australia. Now imagine if we were there in USSR and she had no idea that this was propaganda. I'd still be there, back in the USSR. Back in the USSR, you couldn't create political memes about our fearless leaders. And now our very own Australian politicians are finding memes objectionable. We can't possibly be hurting politicians' feelings, can we? All the more reason why we should have more memes. Thanks, Craig. They were awesome. My mother, my strong-willed mother, brought my family to a land of acceptable differences of opinions, and not a land where the Police Commissioner of New South Wales states the police are the single source of truth. How totally Stalin-esque of her. Is she channeling her inner KGB? I'm sorry, I'm confused. Why are we not able to see the footage of Ma Marie Emanuel? Why? But we can see footage from Ukraine-Russia war. That's acceptable. And we can see the footage in Israel and Gaza. That's acceptable. And we saw a dead body in Chanel at Bondi Junction, Westfield, on social media, and that was also acceptable. I'm sorry, but Julie Inman Grant says so. That's why we can see it. An ex-employer on Twitter who is now after Elon Musk, really. Back in the USSR, people were paid to dob each other in. Colleagues, family members, friends, it didn't really matter. Does it sound familiar to you? Except They didn't get paid for it, whereas in USSR, the jobbers did get paid. Back in the USSR, my great-grandfather disappeared, together with all his colleagues except for one, never to be heard from again. What discussions did these people have to disappear and end up in a gulag or Siberia? But one remained. I wonder what happened there. Dobbing a neighbour during COVID, does that sound familiar to anybody? Just slightly more detrimental in the USSR, people never came back. Back in the USSR, the Soviet people were silenced by their government. Their freedoms, like ours, were taken away slowly, so they didn't notice. Until a totalitarian regime emerged. How far away from this are we? Today in Australia, the misinformation and disinformation bill is looming, and yet it doesn't apply to government or mainstream media. Has anyone read Animal Farm? I'm sure everyone's read Animal Farm, so it didn't apply to the pigs. The rules did not apply to pigs, applied to every other animal. All those from the Soviet Union can attain to the fact that fear from the knock on the door in the middle of the night when the KGB would drag you off was real. And you were considered an enemy of the people if a single anti-government slur exited your lips. And some patriot decided he wanted brownie points from the Politburo. Was that like a social credit score system, like we're about to face? Is this where Australia is heading? Whereby we get a digital ID, CBDCs, and a social credit score. And then you drive your car once too many times, you've too many carbon emissions, and you can't access your bank account and can't feed your families. Honestly, imagine what the Soviets could have achieved if they had these wonderful Western innovations. Stalin may have killed a few more million than just 20. Since when does our government need to know everything there is to know about the Australian people?
For safety.
A centralised data bank, a hackable data bank, in order to store all of your digital data. And how many data breaches must we have before the Australian people wake up? It's just not a good idea. Now, we're not in the USSR, thank goodness, where people had minimal freedoms. We're in Australia, the lucky country, or so I thought when my mother brought me here. We do not need a digital ID. We need a government who trusts the Australian people. We do not need a misinformation, disinformation bill. We are capable of deciding our own truths. There is not a universal truth. And no one has the right to be the arbiter of truth single-handedly. This is the time to stand up. It's a time to fight for our fundamental freedoms and our rights as Australian people. So to the Uni Party of Australia, and that involves Liberals, Labor, Greens and Teals. We the people are not going to stand for this. So each and every one of you, I implore you, write to your MPs. Please write about the disinformation, misinformation bill, the digital ID, and I know we're not talking about it, but the WHO, which is looming as well. We need you to tell each and every one of your friends to do the same, because we cannot have this happen. And thank you everyone for coming on a wet day.
Natalie's parents, like many of our parents and grandparents, fled from totalitarian regimes because there was a place to come to, the great land of Australia. But today, there's nowhere left to go. We stand and we fight because there's no other country in the world that we can go to that has the freedoms that previous generations had. That's why we're going to stand and we're going to fight. Now, just before we have our next speaker up, we know the media will probably be covering this and say there were maybe 10 or 12 people here. So I'm just going to get up and she's going to do a quick film around. So just for the record, for the public record, so I can see what a great crowd we've had here. Just 1 second. Everyone give Anne a wave as she jumps up and just quick film. Now we know yes, I said the ABC report was 12 people here today, so we just have to keep that on the actually public record to show the great crowd that we had on a wet Sunday, pouring down rain. Thanks, everyone. Our next speaker is someone that writes for the great Spectator magazine. If you don't read the Spectator or follow it, I can highly recommend it. She also has her own program on ADH TV. I give you Alexandra Marshall.
Hello everyone, this is my first rally, so I think I'll start with a little bit of a mic test. When I say liberty, you shout, hell yeah! Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yeah, see? It's my first rally. So, we're going to have a mic test. When I say liberty, you shout hell yeah! Liberty! Hell yeah! Liberty! Hell yeah! Liberty! Hell yeah! That's a relief. Look, it's good to hear a bit of enthusiasm for the cornerstone of Western civilization. Making a noise is exactly what we are here to do today. The Australian government has behaved in a despicable manner. They have pushed through legislation, the Digital ID Bill, without so much as a discussion. Now this is the government, the Labor government, the Albanese government who held a whole referendum on voices, and yet they don't want to hear the voices of anybody standing here today. Now lately, I've been struck by this terrible feeling that we are standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down to the abyss, and you can hear the stampede of all the sheep heading straight toward us to push us off that cliff. But what sits at the bottom? What is our future? It is a digital dystopia. Now, it's coming. As the modern world becomes a digital world, the person who controls all your data and can see all of your data rules the world. It is the wet dream of every petty tyrant in history. And digital ID is the key to unlock a Chinese credit social system that has no place in this country. Now, as someone who used to design AI databases, I can tell you that I've got no problem with the government improving its systems. They are terrible. It is like dealing with the Stone Age out there. But this is not what we are talking about. You know, you don't want incompetence and malevolence, and there is something malevolent about this digital ID bill. Now, I'm convinced the only reason that the North Korean hackers haven't got your data already is because our databases are so bad that they can't even speak the same language. But this is the government's pitch to you for digital ID, and it's a good one. The Finance Department says, and all of its ministers who drafted the bill, and this is how they're selling it to you, Gallagher says, do you absolutely hate dealing with government systems? Is my GovID a nightmare? Well, just give us more power and more data, and we promise it'll be better. That's it, that's the ad campaign. Now, my boss at The Spectator, the great Rowan Dean, is an advertising man, and I guarantee he would not sign off on that pitch. But let's not forget, the grand dream of digital ID is coming from the people who told us that it was racist to have ID when you go to vote. So it is dangerous to check your ID to protect democracy, but it is unsafe to not have digital ID everywhere else in your life. That's the pitch. That's the incoherent nonsense of our bureaucracy. Now, when I interviewed Augusto Zimmerman on Spectator TV on ADH, which you can guys watch online for free, he reminded me that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And I reminded him that the price of liberty is $44 billion US, which is what Elon Musk paid to buy Twitter and ensure our freedom from the tyrannical regime. Much to the horror of our eSafety commissioner, who we are now calling the Stasi Commissar here at One Nation. Now, Augusto was quoting Thomas Jefferson, who was paraphrasing a general idea around at the time. And there are many, many great quotes about liberty. I'm sure you've all heard Benjamin Franklin's warning not to give up a little bit of, freedom for a bit of safety. And he was right. Safety has been weaponized as the word used to justify all of our government's bad ideas. Online censorship is about safety. Net zero is about safety. The vaccine passports were about safety. And digital ID is about safety. All the worst pieces of legislation have been sponsored by safety and your fear. But politicians, Labour, Liberal and the Greens, they want to be safe because they are afraid. They are afraid of how you will vote, they are afraid of how you will speak, and they are afraid of what will happen to them when they are no longer in power. But today's rally is not about liberty. It is about privacy. Although I might get another hell yeah for liberty. Liberty! Just thought I'd check. Now, digital ID is about privacy. Privacy from your government. Privacy from the pencil pushers in Canberra. And privacy from the busy body control freaks who call themselves ministers. Now, privacy from the eSafety Commissioner. The Stasi of social media who wants to tell you what you can read or what you can see online about the rest of the world. That's what this rally is about. I know it says digital ID on some of your shirts, but it is about privacy. Liberty and privacy are brothers. They are siblings of the Enlightenment. And the grand philosophers and politicians didn't write much about privacy because this is the first time in history that privacy has come under threat in this manner from our governments. The fight for privacy is our fight. This generation, it is yours, not history's. We are the ones who are being called up and told to say, no, this is not an acceptable thing for our government to do to us. It's one thing for a bank to verify your ID. It's another for Amazon to verify that when you're being shipped goods. But when the government wants to insert itself into our capitalist society and into our transactions, that is something else entirely. That is a threat to democracy. We don't need the government to act as our chaperone online.
No way!
We don't need a nanny state.
No way! Yeah!
I used to work in retail, guys. We put barcodes on our products. And that is what the government sees us as, products, and digital ID is a barcode for all of you. Now, what are you going to do about it? You vote the buggers out.
Yes!
You vote for One Nation, you vote for Libertarians, you vote for a minor party that stands for freedom. Preferably One Nation. They say this is not a compulsory thing, but how long until you need a digital ID to open a bank account? To rent a property? They may say you don't need it, but I guarantee you'll be at the bottom of the queue and you will have to get this in order to survive.
What about the fingerprint barcode?
Exactly. They're going to put your IDs and your biometrics on every single thing. Now, the government says this is safe, but did you guys get issued a policy or an assurance from the Department of Finance that this won't be hacked? Did anyone get given a guarantee that this is actually safe? If you centralize data, then that means that when a hacker comes and gets it, they get everything. If something goes wrong, everything goes wrong. When you centralize data, you maximize risk, and that is what this is. Now, this all comes down to trust, ladies and gentlemen. Do you trust the government?
No!
Do you trust Albanese with your credit card details?
Hell no!
Do you trust Gallagher with your passport and your license?
Hell no!
Are you going to give the eSafety Commissioner the password to Twitter and Facebook?
Hell no!
Look, would you trust Jim Chalmers with your energy bills? Yeah. Now, the government wants you to believe that privacy is suspicious, and the people who want privacy want to do something wrong. Well, we are not doing something wrong. The government is doing something wrong. We want privacy from them because we don't trust them. So as the great and wonderful One Nation Senator Malcolm Roberts said, this bill is written to be misused. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes!
Thanks, Alexandra, and don't forget to follow Alexandra, the Spectator magazine, and also at ADH TV. Just before I call up our next speaker, just a reminder of how the government, dishonest and trickery they go about with the digital ID bill. The normal procedure in our federal parliament is that legislation is introduced into the lower house, the House of Representatives, where it was debated. Once it passes the House of Representatives, it goes to our Senate, which is known as the House of Review. And the Senate reviews that legislation, either passes it or sends it back to the House with amendments. That is the democratic Westminster process. But what the Albanese government did with the digital ID bill is introduce it into the Senate first, completely against the principles of a democratic society. And then what they did what they call guillotine the debate, which means they didn't allow proper and full debate on that legislation. So senators like Malcolm Roberts couldn't get in and have a full discussion and a full debate on the digital ID bill. They guillotined it through. And then, with the help of the independents, the so-called independents, the Teal in Pocock and the Greens, they got that legislation passed. Through the House of Reps. Sorry, through the Senate. It still has to go back through the House of Representatives. Now, the reason they did that piece of trickery is because they knew that there would be mass protests against that digital ID bill, and they didn't have the numbers in the Senate. They wanted to push it through before the public could wake up to it. But we are awake. We are here sending a loud message to Albanese. Stop that digital ID bill. Don't pass it through the House of Reps. And on that digital ID bill, never forget the party that first introduced it and first talked about it. It wasn't the Labor Party. It wasn't the Greens. It was the Liberal Party of Australia that first proposed the digital ID bill. And next speaker, Bec Freedom.
First, I want to say thank you to every single one of you for coming out. We all know Sydney weather has been, we'll say, crap. So thank you to every single one of you that made the effort to come out here and fight for a common cause against the common enemy. Now, I could come up here and I could preach to the choir and tell you all a bunch of stuff that you already know, but there's no point. So what is the digital ID bill meant to be used for? According to a tweet by Katie Gallagher, the Albanese Labor government is making it easier, simpler and more secure for you to access government services online. What happened last time they made this claim? The personal information and data of millions of Australians was compromised from the COVID Safe app. Clearly this shows us that we cannot trust our government with large amounts of data stored in the one spot. We've seen this happen to also 9.8 million Optus customers, along with the Australian National University and Services New South Wales. Our information, all compiled into the one spot, is clearly unsafe for the Australian people. We've been told it won't be mandatory, but where have we heard that before? Millions of Australians were forced into getting vaccination that supposedly wasn't mandatory. Sorry guys.
17 million deaths around the world from that.
Exactly.
17 million deaths.
Just this week, I heard about someone in Queensland applying for a job, but they were unable to move forward unless they provided all their information via digital ID. Shame. So clearly this is going to affect our day-to-day lives. If you can't even apply for a job and successfully get that job without providing your information via a digital ID. So what can we do about it? Obviously our government will push through whatever they want without our permission. So we need to get out onto the streets and speak to the general public. We need to make sure the general public are aware of the data breaches. Make sure that we remind them about the data breaches. We need to remind them that the conveniency that the government is claiming that this has isn't actually that convenient. What happens if you smash your phone on the way into the petrol station paying for petrol? Something so simple as that can turn your life into just a pain in the ass. Let's be real. Sorry guys, I get crazy nervous at these things. Thank you. Alright. I love you guys are awesome. Alright, so moving on from the digital ID bill, we've got freedom of speech that is constantly under attack. What can we do about that? We've had many accounts lost. A lot of us truth speakers have lost multiple accounts. I personally on TikTok alone up to 19. But we've got Bec's Newsroom, who's up to I think 76. But we don't give up. We keep putting out our information. We keep making posts. We keep talking to our local community. No matter how much they try to silence us, as long as we keep going, we cannot be silenced. The people will not be silenced. So what I'm going to ask all of you here, if you're not on social media, get onto social media. You don't have to show your face to speak. You can share memes. You can share snippets of information. But if every single person that is standing in this park today puts out one bit of information per day, they can't silence us. They can't stop us, no matter how hard they try. If by chance they do, we take to the streets with pamphlets and flyers. We have communication. We go back to the basics. We never stand down and we never give up. Freedom of speech is a human right. Thanks, guys.
Australians with such passion and determination to protect this great country. Our next speaker is a former member of the Liberal Party, a former Liberal Member of Parliament for the seat of Parramatta, a former minister in a Liberal government. And of course, I think I should remind him about what a freedom of speech a once great former Liberal Party leader said, which was Sir Robert Menzies, and I quote, "Now why is this freedom of speech of real importance to humanity? The answer is that what appears to be the truth today is frequently tomorrow's error. There is nothing absolute about the truth. It is elusive. Hence, if the truth is to emerge in the long run and be triumphant, the process of free debate, the untrampled clash of opinion must go on." That was once the sentiments of the once great Liberal Party. As you said, we had speakers today. John Ruddick, a former Liberal Party member. Now I'd like to introduce Ross Cameron, a former Liberal Party MP.
Much, Craig. I'm now for my sins, the president of the New South Wales Libertarian Party. On the day of the election, there was nobody else available.
Can I take your photo?
And so Craig rang me, and he said, "Mate, I want you to come and meet with, talk to, a bunch of people at Speaker's Corner in the Domain." And on Sunday, I said, "Mate, it's going to be pouring down rain. There'll be nobody there." And he said, "Well, Ross, even if there's 10 people, if there's 30, if there's 50, they are going to be the 10 most intelligent, most rational, most far-sighted, most patriotic Australians in Sydney today." And I said, "Mate, I'll be there." And I just want to say, as president of the Libertarian Party, I want to say to Craig Kelly, to Senator Pauline Hanson, Senator Malcolm Roberts, congratulations, your party is now Australia's second best political party. I said, "Craig, what are we going to be talking about?" He said, "Digital ID, misinformation, disinformation." I said, "Well, it's effectively the same thing. It's two creatures of the same species." And it was the great libertarians like Murray Rothbard and Ludwig von Mises who recognised that the interests of the citizen and the interests of the state are not always aligned. And in fact, sometimes they're in a direct confrontation. But the state can always be relied upon to act in the interests of the state. And, you know, I was in Canberra with, I was down there for 3 terms. I can promise you in the history of Federation, from 1901 to 2024, no head of a government department has ever gone to the Treasurer and said, "Oh, look, Treasurer, I'm sorry, but you've given us too much money and power." We believe the correct approach is to give the citizens more power and give the department less power and money. I can promise you that conversation has never taken place, because to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And the Liberal Party, in a sense, the question, historically, the Labor Party has always been on the side of the state against the citizen. The Liberal Party was meant to be on the side of the citizen against the state. But what we find is that the Liberal Party has become like the chameleon lizard or the cephalopod octopus, that when it lands on the surface of the state, it takes on the colour, the shape, the contour and the appetites of the state. And so, you know, you take misinformation and disinformation. Yeah, give me that. Give me that. Works. It's working now. I think I like his better than mine.
Does that work? The point is that speaking of creatures that are members of the same species, okay? There's three species of snake that are members of the constrictor family. Okay, there's the boa constrictor, there's the anaconda, and there's the python. And their method is not to work by venom, but by pressure. And you may remember 2017, the film that won the BAFTA award for the best TV program was the BBC Earth of the lizards on the Galapagos Island getting chased by the chaser snakes. There was one little lizard was rushing, scrambling, and they were all attacking, trying to get away. And as he approached the rocks, a snake wrapped its coil around him, and a second one joined. And this little iguana was wriggling and struggling, and he just managed to push his front claws through and scramble up onto the rock. And the point is, it's not the first coil that kills you. And I see both the digital ID and misinformation and disinformation. They're two creatures, and they're two coils of the anaconda. You cannot reform the behaviour of a snake. You can only kill it or reduce its size. And that's what we have to do with the government. Whenever the government sees a problem, it reduces to this binary decision where the problem is always the citizen and the answer is always the state. And we are here today to say we do not consent. The old bullhorn. There's something traditional about it rather than a microphone. Our next speaker and our final speaker today, a special guest all the way from Vancouver in Canada. You've probably seen him on the internet fighting for the protection of kids, fighting for the madness, the woke mind virus that's taken over so many parts of not only of Australia and the world. Let's give a great big Sydney welcome to Billboard Chris.
Put him down here. Fix your collar. Yes, thank you. Fix my collar. There we go. Hello, Australia. I've had an amazing welcome here, never minding the people with the purple and the pink hair at the universities. But for 3 years and 8 months, I have been on a mission to stop what I consider to be the greatest child abuse scandal in the history of modern medicine. business of giving children puberty-blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, the opposite sex's hormones, and they're doing surgeries on kids as well. They're cutting off the breasts of girls in Australia. Yes, Shane is right. And we cannot tolerate a society that is doing this to our kids. There is no such thing as a transgender child. This is all a lie that has been pushed by governments, by the World Health Organization, by the UN, by so-called LGBTQ organizations, which are really just TQ organizations, pushing this denial of reality that there is something called being born in the wrong body. Now, I've had tens of thousands of conversations out on the street and at university campuses. To this day, no one can tell me what it means to be born wrong, because there is no such thing. But our kids are being indoctrinated online, in schools, through society, through people they meet playing video games even. And it's all the kids who are struggling. It's the kids with autism. In the Tavistock, the biggest gender clinic in the world that's just been shut down in England, 35% of the children out of a sample of more than 1,000 had moderate to severe autism. Never mind the more mild cases. These are kids who have suffered sexual abuse. A girl or a boy who has been sexually abused obviously isn't going to be loving being a girl right now. And if you give her an out where she can just opt out of her sex and say she's a boy and she thinks she's going to escape the source of the greatest trauma in her life, of course, some of these kids are going to jump at that. These are the misfits. They've got trauma, abuse, they're depressed. Oftentimes their parents have borderline personality disorder and they're pushing this on their own kids. And I'm all for parental rights, but there's one right parents don't have, and that's the right to abuse their own children, and this is child abuse. The positive message we should be sending our kids is that they are beautiful just as they are. No drugs, no scalpels needed. So I've been on this mission, having conversations out on the street and at university campuses. Sometimes all heck breaks loose. I get assaulted and all that. But honestly, the type of people who have a problem with me are not the type who hit hard. So I don't really need to worry about them. And like a gift from heaven recently, I was getting into bed a month or two ago, and I checked my email, and I had this email that had been forwarded to me from X, formerly Twitter. And it had an attachment from your lovely eSafety commissioner ordering one of my tweets to be taken down. And I smiled ear to ear because I knew what a blessing this was, because a tweet that I'd already completely forgotten about and had only been seen about 400,000 times has now been seen tens of millions of times. But in Australia, there is a woman called Teddy Cook who now says she's a man. She has cut off her breasts. She runs ACON. She's vice president of the Australian Professional Association for Transgender Health. She's into bondage. She promotes bestiality. She says that trans-identified people have better sex when high on illicit drugs. So naturally, this person has been appointed to a UN panel of 20 experts to draft the healthcare policy for our kids who are struggling. She's not a doctor. I think she works at Starbucks.
Well, that makes her an expert.
So this is not someone who has any business drafting healthcare policy for kids, obviously. And it wasn't my nicest tweet in the history of the world, but I said people who belong in psychiatric wards are drafting the policy for people who belong in psychiatric wards. Yes. And so they ordered that tweet taken down. So none of you can see this tweet in Australia. It's still up. But I have filed an appeal. The Free Speech Union of Australia is representing me. Please give them a hand. And I don't think they followed their own procedures. They're supposed to notify me and all that, but I don't really care about those details. Honestly, I don't even care if we win or lose. This is all about exposing these authoritarians who think they can censor what you can say and what you can see. So we're going to keep this Julie Inman Grant, this American in the news cycle, we're going to keep exposing her. Elon Musk is even taking legal action against them for my tweet, which is pretty crazy. And as we've seen, they're never going to stop trying to censor you. They're now going after misogyny. The party that doesn't know what a woman is now going after misogyny. The party that says violent rapists who identify as women and are allowed into your female spaces is now going after misogyny. They have their misinformation and disinformation bill, but the government, the media, and the universities are all exempt. The three people, the three groups who lie the most are exempt from this bill. This is 1984. And all we need to do as a population all across the West, because the same bills, this same trend is happening all across the West, is we need to vote these people out, and we need to restore common sense. So, thank you so much for the warm welcome, everybody. There is a new definition of what it means to be a mom and a dad in this world today. And a dad is someone who protects his kids from gender ideology. So, one conversation at a time, we are going to put a stop to this child abuse. I'm nobody. I'm just a dad who's living out in the suburbs. I'm a dad of two girls. They're now 12 and 14 years old. But I got tired of this assault on our kids. I got tired of this assault on the West. And I decided I wasn't going to look back at my life in 40 years and say I knew about this child abuse. I knew I could have done something about it, and I did nothing. So we just need to use our voice. Thank you very much, everybody. You're beautiful. I love you. Let's go get this government out of power. Peace.
Well, that's about a wrap for our official speakers, but a few takeaway messages. As Chris said, there's no one else that we can rely on. We've got to do this ourselves. We've got to all have the job. Everyone here has the job to stand up and speak out and fight against the things that are sending our country into reverse. We say no to the digital ID bill. We say no to the mis- and disinformation bill. We say no to the World Health Organization treaty. We say no to the nonsense and destructive insanity of net zero. And we say no to the mass craziness migration that is going on in this country. We love our migrants from whatever walk of life, whatever country they come from. But to have over 100,000 new people enter this country in a single month alone, when we have Australians living in tents and under bridges, is complete and utter madness. These are the things that we need to speak out on. We need to make sure at that next election, that federal election, that we get more good people elected into that federal parliament outside of the two major parties that are doing such a destructive job on this nation. So I'd encourage anyone, please, if you think you can make a candidate, put your hand up and say that you'll run. Come and join along. I hope you join One Nation or one of the other freedom parties. We need your support. We need your voice. We need you out there because we have a country to save. And just finally, as this is traditionally Speaker's Corner, where anyone can rock up and speak. When we finish here, we'll be taking down our official One Nation signs, and anyone at all that wants to come up and say a few words can. That's the tradition of our democracy, where everyone has a say. But finally, if there's any, we have Richard here From Malcolm Roberts' office for One Nation in the white shirt. Richard, just come forward a bit, so stick your hand up. If you're a One Nation member, we need you to fill out a couple of forms to get ourselves, make sure our registration stays valid in New South Wales. If you come forward and fill that out, or if you'd like to come and join one of the political parties and join the fight to save this country, come and see Richard. So thanks again. Thanks everyone that's come along today. Let's go and let's make our voice louder and louder and take this country back. Thanks very much.
Years in this country, and our country has been sold out continuously. The fact is that it is an unconstitutional government in power. It is a foreign occupying belligerent government, and they want you to stay as citizens, because as a citizen you have no rights. Okay? You have no rights under your constitution as a citizen. People need to do some research and get the knowledge. Come and join us at myplaceaustralia.org. We are educating ourselves about our standing, and our standing is above any constitution. Our standing is above any government, any court, any policy enforcer on this land. We are the highest authority, the people. Now these governments have been breaking laws continually, and our rights and freedoms have been removed over the last 4 years especially, and the people won't stand for it any longer. So please, do not get sucked into the matrix of believing there's a political answer to the problems this country or the world is facing. There simply is not. They are the same bird with multiple wings, okay? It's all a show. It's all a show. They let them off the leash to make you believe that there's a political answer. Yes, he's standing up for the people. Look at him go. Why isn't he talking about the child trafficking in this country? Why isn't he talking about these people have voted for a suppression order to cover up the list of 28 pedophiles that are in the top levels of our government and our court system? Why won't they talk about that? They've voted for that suppression order, a 99-year suppression order that Craig Kelly has voted to suppress when he was previously a Liberal Party member. These people don't change their spots, guys, okay? They're not there for the people. It is very simple. So don't get sucked into believing that One Nation or United Australia Party or any other political party, which is unconstitutional to have a political party under our constitution, are going to do the right thing. It's all talk. They lie through their teeth, and they will continue to lie through the teeth. So the spell has been broken, and these people's days are numbered. And I guarantee you, there is evidence on all of them, and they will end up being correct.
I'll go on, bro.
So Fight Club, I think next week will be Tuesday night. So kind of
The people didn't sign those contracts and went to most of the bases on their willing. Okay, so we don't need to exit the hoop. We don't need to waste our time fighting digital ID. We need to build community. We need to educate ourselves and empower ourselves with the truth. Right? And you ain't going to hear it out of any of these people. They lie through their teeth. So the people need to come together. We need to talk. And the people have all the solutions, and we'll fix this country from the ground up. It's never going to get fixed from the top down. It's very simple. So I would suggest you don't trust any of them, and we get together as a people, and we start to work on a strategy which My Place Australia is doing at the moment. So I'll leave it there, and I'll let someone else come and have a talk, but please guys, start to really look at what's going on in this country. As far as I'm concerned, they're all criminals, and they've all got to be removed. Thank you.